and welcome to Fearless DIY Music. My name is Tristan Lass, and today I want to discuss the pleasures and the pitfalls of owning a vintage acoustic guitar. Today, the two examples I want to use from my collection are my two Gibson LGOs. The one that I am holding right here, this one is a 1964. This one right here, this is a 1967. Both of these guitars have given me endless grief throughout the time I've had them. I've had this particular guitar for about 25 years, the 64, and I can safely say that just in the past few days, I finally have done all the work necessary to make it perfectly playable, all the way up and down the neck, and hopefully it will have better tuning stability and better just general stability during the usual seasonal temperature and humidity changes that all acoustic guitars face. This guitar has been in pristine condition for about 2 years now, but a lot of work went into it as well. Now, I am not here to tell you not to search for a cool, old, funky, vintage acoustic guitar. You can still find certain ones by certain makers that are affordable. It is highly unfortunate at this point that these LGOs, both of which I'm not even going to say how much they cost or didn't cost me. One was basically a gift, and then the other was basically, I picked up for next to nothing, but it was a long time ago when I got both of these guitars. And the market and the internet weren't around to drive the prices up. Unfortunately, anything with the Gibson on the headstock now is just going nuts. And I can tell you for a fact, after looking on Reverb, that you do not want to buy one of these at the prices they are. They are plentiful. Maybe you could find one at a swap meet. You could find something like this maybe, at an estate sale. But yeah, it's just the market has become ridiculous. These were student-level instruments. And that's kind of the area I want to talk about, because if you're after a vintage acoustic, obviously if you're in the Gibson and Martin game, all that stuff is unobtainium, at least in my universe. So the relatively budget-friendly vintage acoustics that exist are going to be the student level guitars. This was the bottom of the barrel when it was made. Both of these guitars. These were the lowest thing, the lowest of the low that Gibson was cranking out. They're all mahogany. They are all Honduran mahogany, and they've got, beautiful rosewood boards on them. This one, this 64 might even be Brazilian. Who knows? I don't think that it is, but it could be. And the thing is that these guitars were not meant to last. They came with plastic bridges on them that had 4 screws from underneath that held them on. These were very much designed to be disposable beginner guitars. As such, now that we look at them nearly 60 years later, or 60 years later, we're looking at this, especially for this one. This one's 60 years old. We look at them, and when you purchase one or you're playtesting one, you have to be aware of the fact that there will be cracks in the top. There'll be cracks in the back. There could be cracks in the side that have either been repaired or not repaired. So I kind of want to go through a little bit of what I've done to make these into decent playing guitars that I can trust and that I can use in the studio. This actually was my main stage acoustic forever, even though it was half broken half the time. Just because tonally, these guitars do sound very good. And the necks are very playable because they're almost like an electric guitar neck because they were designed for students. So let's discuss some of the things to look for. And I think that I will start at the headstock. Tuners. These are not the original tuners on this guitar. These are Gibson Cluson style tuners. I don't know. They came with the guitar. They're probably from the late 70s, early 80s, the best I can tell. The plate tuners that these came with, none of them have survived the test of time as far as I can tell. I've never seen one with the original tuning machine heads on them. And you'll find that with lots of other vintage acoustic guitars as well in the student level range, because they basically had plate tuners where you'd have 3 tuners on one plate. They shove it in. The plastics used for the buttons was terrible, have not survived the test of time. So your tuners, just assume, are either going to be poor replacements, ruined originals, or a decent replacement. And if you're not happy with the tuners, just swap them. I mean, there's no sense in trying to keep these instruments original because the components that were put on them were garbage. Plain and simple. You know, Gibson's been cranking out trash for a long time. Haha. But anyway, so at the headstock, you got your tuners. The nuts, I have both the original nuts on both of these guitars as far as I can tell. They are not great nuts, but the plastic is held up. They are decent. I haven't had any issues with them. And, you know, just a little bit of reshaping and just a little bit of tweaking, and they've been fine. Now we get into the nightmare. The nightmare of vintage acoustic guitars is when you get to the frets, especially the student level model guitars. A fret level, if not a full refret, is on the horizon for you. I just recently leveled this one. Last week I leveled this guitar for the first time. I had played it and had dead spots and buzzing and all sorts of nastiness. Basically, you couldn't play it above the 7th or 9th fret without just, you know, there was no point. So I did a level and a crown and a dress and a full polish on them, and now it plays all the way up and down the neck. And I'll just demonstrate that real quick. And that's why I love these guitars. They just sound really good and they're easy to play when they're all put together right. They're absolute joy. But just know, you have to do a lot of work. This one also has had the frets leveled. This one, though, had a significant ski jump. Let's go ahead and pick it up for a second because I need to talk about some other things that this guitar got that this one did not. So on this one, there is a ski jump. This part of the fingerboard is slightly elevated relative to the rest of the fingerboard, the fretboard. So to get playability up in that range, I had to basically do a fall off where I sanded these frets much flatter than the rest of the frets to give a compensation to the ski jump. So the ski jump is when the finger or the fretboard is going up like that. If it's not too severe, you can do your frets like that to go ahead and compensate for it. Since I'm not going to be living in this area, the last 5 frets on this guitar are kind of irrelevant to me. They're just more for decoration. But by doing so, it allows me to get up there and do my blues box and pentatonics or just whatever scale I want to do there in E. Lets me get up there and have that playability. So you're gonna be doing fret work. In some cases, you know, just taking the frets off altogether and flattening the finger or the fretboard and reinstalling new frets may be the best option for you. Sometimes also if the truss rod has been compromised, which is entirely possible, you would take the fretboard off anyway and kind of be starting from scratch. Now, to the plastic bridges, which was not unique to Gibson. There were other makers during the 50s and 60s that would use shady materials to cut costs on these instruments. So this is a rosewood bridge that I fabricated myself, the bone saddle there, and it made all the difference on this guitar. Basically, it gives me the stability and the contact at the top that you would expect, you know, with a solid mass of beautiful, you know, ebony on there. If I said rosewood a minute ago, that was a mistake. This is an ebony bridge that I constructed. So anyway, they're also, and I'm going to jump over here real quick and look at my notes because I always get this wrong. So just one sec. All right. Pardon me for that. I want to talk about the JLD Bridge Doctor. It is a device that is inside of this guitar. That is why, if you look right there, there's a little pearl inlay in this bridge that I made. Underneath that is a screw that goes into a piece of wood about that long. Through that piece of wood, there is a dowel that goes back to the back end of the guitar. You can tighten that dowel in, and I'll show a diagram of this particular device. You can tighten that dowel in and basically take the taco out of the top. Most of these guitars have a big slope right here, and it's basically the neck is pulling, the neck and the bridge are heading into the sound hole on these guitars. This one has a taco, but I have compensated enough with my neck work, you know, my fret work, truss rod adjustment, and my bridge adjustment on the 64 to make it playable without that bridge doctor in there. This one, however, the taco was so severe that I had to put a bridge doctor in to get the top relatively flat. It is still not perfectly flat, but if I tighten that up anymore and cantilever more pressure onto the top, I run the risk of developing cracks here on either side of the soundboard, and I don't want that. It is good enough. The guitar is perfectly playable, but that's some extensive work. If you're not doing that work yourself, then you're adding another, you know, with the fret work and then potentially making a new bridge and putting in a bridge doctor and all of these things. You start to see how it adds up. And even if you get a student level vintage acoustic guitar at a relatively good price, if you're willing to do the work yourself, you're all set. And I mean, this channel is about DIY work. I am going to be doing a separate video on the bridge doctor to show how to install one, because I'm probably going to put one on this guitar eventually. So anyway, if you're willing to do a lot of work, it can become a great project with a great end result. If you do not have the ability or the will to do the work, just know that when you buy one of these type of instruments, that you're going to be going to your local luthier or your trusted tech, and you're going to be dropping probably, you know, at least $500 into the instrument right away, just with crack repair, with getting the neck right, with perhaps replacing the bridge, getting the taco out of the top. It adds up. So, should you go near these instruments? If I hadn't had these come through my life the way that they did, I probably would have avoided them. They have been a constant trial and tribulation. However, when they are playing properly, and, you know, I just finally really got focused on making both of these into great players over the past, you know, couple of years, and then the past few weeks just on this one. Now that they are dialed, and I feel that they have been stabilized, these are amazing players. And if you're willing to make that investment either with your sweat equity or by giving the money to your trusted luthier, you will end up with what could very well be a lifetime instrument. These student level, and here's another thing too. I keep talking about student level vintage acoustics. You're going to find this on Martins as well, the higher end Martin stuff. That is, you know, before 1960 or even, you know, into the 70s, you know, you're going to be dealing with things. They don't have truss rods. You know, there's a lot of things that can go wrong with an acoustic guitar over the annals of time. Certainly high-end Gibsons. I've played all different kinds of Gibson models from the 60s era, and they're all a hot mess until they are properly worked on. And you know, I'm just throwing this out here as a cautionary tale because I noticed that, when people are looking at these, or, let's say there's an ad and somebody, has questions about these kinds of guitars, or if I get asked, oh, should I buy this? Hey, Tris, should I buy this guitar? And I just always want to reach out to people and go, okay, you're looking at an instrument that's going to need a lot of work, and it's going to need a lot of care after the work is done. I have to keep these humidified. I have to keep these, I have to be precious with them, because otherwise things go wrong. And that's the nature of an old wood instrument like this, especially the acoustic guitar. It's just, it's this tenuous thing with, all the string tension on the top, and the wood gets old and it cracks. But over time, it just sounds so good. Something to consider, and I just want to make this video as a conversation that I would have with a friend who's going and going, oh, cool, I found this really neat old guitar. I have an old Stella that is made of plywood, and I still one day walked into my studio and it had a split down the back that hadn't been there the day before. Just know that no matter what it's made of, or who the maker is, or what level instrument it was, if it's over 50 years old, over 40 years old, let's back that up a little bit. If it's over 40 years old, there is a darn good chance that the thing is going to need a lot of work. All right. Well, thank you so much for watching. If you've watched this video up to this point, I would hope that you have subscribed by now. A like and a share and a comment is also greatly appreciated. The channel is growing very nicely, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.